Hi, Mickey from Flipping Spain. Welcome back. This is part two of our flip analysis, and we're going to look at a different property, one that's super cheap and needs a lot more work. And then we'll compare the two side by side and decide which one we think is the better deal. So let's get started.
So I'm going to do this search in Fotocasa just so you can see the difference. Maybe there's some different things listed. There are slightly different search criteria, which can be really helpful so you can figure out which one works best for you. So we're going to really drill down on this one because we want something that needs a ton of work. It's interesting because in Spain you choose secondhand is a quote used home versus new construction, where we wouldn't really make that distinction in the US. So we're going to do secondhand. We're only going to look up to 50,000 euros because we really want to get the price down. And we're going to say at least 2 rooms. So there's not a whole lot of choice. We've got 13 whole ads in the wider Logroño area, and we can order them in different ways. The default that comes up is the Fotocasa rating, which I don't really know what that has to do with anything. So we can do it 2 ways. We can look at the cheapest to start with and just go through. And we saw this in our other search on Idealista. Really want to try and find something that has some pictures. And a few of these I'll scroll past because I've looked at them before and I know that they're not either shared ownership or they're tenanted and you can't view it, which we kind of want to avoid anything like that. I love this. Is like it has a drawing, a hand-drawn floor plan. Oh, it does have pictures. That's helpful. This is a 2-bedroom that's as big as the 3-bedroom we were looking at. So this is something you could always consider because there might be a way to make it a 3-bedroom if that will get you a much higher price. This actually might be a good deal in general, but it's not what we're looking for today, so we're going to skip it. Okay, so this is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. It's 67 square meters, so it's not quite as big as our other one, which was 85, but it's almost half the price. And I think we looked at this, so now I'm curious because I feel like this is on Idealista for a much higher price. No, I was wrong. It is on Idealista for exactly the same price, and it says that it's 5th floor without a lift. So Idealista tends to just translate for you, but here you can click Translate to English and it will give you the description. It does not have an elevator, so that doesn't meet our criteria. If it was cheap enough, it might, but you just don't want, you want something that's going to sell quickly. You don't want something that's going to sit on the market, and we don't really have a way of knowing what that looks like right now. Might drill down later into Fotocasa and Idealista just to see if they have statistics on sales prices. All right, that was all of our listings. I think what we might do is look in Calahorra because I know there's some cheaper stuff there. So again, we could look, done the same things, 50,000. I haven't limited by the rooms here just because I'm going to do something different. Instead of looking at the cheapest, I'm going to look at the biggest. I really like this filter option because it shows you, remember we talked about price per square footage? This is going to give you the best price per square footage. So already we have a $34,000 house. It's 334 square meters. That is 4 times the size of our apartment for 83,000. See what this looks like. Oh. It's interesting because a lot of things they say are a house, but really they're sort of like a shop on the bottom floor and maybe something upstairs. So that's what's kind of hard to tell. But I do like that they also show all the price drops. So you do see quite a few of them, and that's always encouraging. There's a 4-bedroom house for 42. Again, we're getting a little high in price. We want something like super, super cheap. And because we're looking in this order, it's not going to give us the cheapest first. So let's keep looking through. Now this is interesting. Okay, I like this. So this is 18,500 euros. It's 95 square meters, which is bigger than our 3-bedroom that we looked at. It's a 2-bedroom, but that could probably be adjusted. Let's look into this. All right, so we might have some facade work to do. and definitely need, new floor, probably some work on the walls. This is our kitchen, which is quite small, quite outdated, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a full gut job. Yeah, I mean, you want to redo this all, but the point is the plumbing's in place. One hopes it's functional. That looks promising. So let's go back and look at what's nearby. This is the one we're looking at, 18,500. It's quite near the townhouse that we looked at in our deal analysis number 1. So everything in this area is fairly cheap. Let's take off our price filter and see what that does. All right, that doesn't add a whole lot. That might be worth looking at. 75,000 for a 1-bedroom. That's in good shape. 51 square meters. That's it. I don't like a 1-bedroom as a comp for a 3-bedroom, but at least it gives us an idea of prices in the area. These are both much bigger. That's 134 square meters, 2-bed. Not updated, but very functional. 3-bed, 2-bath. Single-family house. All right. So, these are things that are nicer and worth more at 120, 160. So we might not be able to sell ours for much over 80 or 90. And I wonder if people want to be in this side of town. This is the old town. So again, all sorts of things we have to research, but we're just going to run the numbers just for fun here. Just to be consistent with the way we researched our other property, let's take a quick look at a couple of our comps. So I found this 1-bed. Again, I don't like a 1-bed as a comp, but we're very limited in our choices here. So it's about 2/3 the size of our property. It's only 1-bed, very up to date, but not super modern. Kitchen size looks comparable, so we could easily do a kitchen like this. I mean, there's maybe 8 cabinets in that kitchen and some appliances. They've done the floors. Bathroom's nice. I like that ceiling, actually. That's interesting. Your little toilet closet. Okay, and that's it. That's all we get for that. So we know we have to have something that compares to that. This is another 1-bedroom. More open plan. Again, a very simple kitchen. Those are not like super fancy countertops by any means. It's got good heating in there. Nice big bathroom. And that's the common area. All right. So that gives us storage unit. That's always a bonus. And then this is the only 2-bedroom I could find. It's not quite in the same neighborhood. It's just next door, and it's 2 beds. It's a similar size. Modern windows. Good flooring. Little balcony. Yeah, so you can see the electrical and everything's been really updated. Bathroom's nothing fancy. Still not finished. There's like wires hanging down instead of light fixtures. So this could actually be a renovation project. All right, that's all we get. So we don't have too high to aspire to. We've just got to have a fresh kitchen, fresh bath, decent flooring, clean walls, that kind of stuff. So it's not that major. Now, before we put our numbers into the spreadsheet, I wanted to do a little research just to see what we could find out about sales. The things you want to know when you're flipping a house is what is a reasonable sales price, and then B, how fast things move. So we might not be able to get all that information online, but we can get a little bit of it at least. So on Idealista, I found that they have price sale reports. So we can do this by the area. So we're going to look up La Rioja. And then we can even nail it down to the city. So we've been looking in Negronio and Kalahara, but let's just look in Negronio for now. We don't know what district, so we're just going to do a generic one. So this gives us a price per square meter, which without looking at our spreadsheet, I can remember that This is higher than the prices of the comps we looked at, and it's higher than our sales price of our property that we were going to flip. So that's a good thing. Of course, that is an average, so it's going to go across the city. It has gone up a bit since last year, which is good. It's gone up quite a bit compared to 2 years ago. And if we look at the historic data, this is all years, so it has gone down. But even the low point is still kind of in the range where things we're looking at now. And if we just look back over 5 years or just 1 year, we can see it remains pretty static. So probably not looking for any huge price increases, but it's stable, and that's great. And this is great because it breaks it down by the different neighborhoods. If we look at our apartment that we were considering flipping, it is in the west area. So yeah, that's about 300 euros less per square meter, but it's up even more over the last 2 years. This looks like slightly more volatile, but overall it's looking pretty stable. Now, if we look at, here's our apartment. Didn't realize the other day when we looked at it that it had been reduced 10,000 euros already, so might be a motivated seller. If we scroll way down, it says get to know the neighborhood in detail. You can access this from reports on prices and just go into it, but this just takes us straight to the neighborhood we want, so it's much easier. So I've got kind of people's opinions, shows us some other things that are for sale in the area, and districts that are nearby, so we can sort of compare if there are any much lower price districts or districts that don't have as good a rating, which is also useful to know. And we can see here we've got a medium price of properties for sale and a medium rent. And again, that's a median, but it gives us an idea of whether our house, when we're buying it and when we're selling it, is priced in line with other properties in the neighborhood, which is going to help it move faster and be more attractive to buyers. So now it's time to put our numbers in. So I've just made another sheet in our spreadsheet for our 2-bed, 2-bath apartment. I don't see a picture of a second bath, so that may not be true. It has no built year. I'm going to assume because of the area that it's in that the actual underlying structure is quite old, like maybe a couple hundred years old, and things have changed over time. It's 94 meters squared, first floor, no lift. Now it is 197 euros per square meter. And if we refresh our memories of our other property, 965, it is significantly cheaper on the purchase side, which is great. So we know our purchase price is 18,500. We're going to figure out our rehab costs. Sales price is a little bit tricky because there's not a lot for sale that's finished in the area. So I've pulled a few comps and I've just broken down the price per square meter so we can kind of get a feel. These are both 1 bedrooms, and then this is a 2-bedroom that's just slightly outside the area but has been redone. So we'll figure out what our finished price and price per square. In fact, we could reverse engineer. Let's do that. Let's say if it sells for the same price as this times our square footage, then our target price would be about 153,000 euro. So if we sold it for the least equals this times this, then we're looking at 116. So let's work with that for now. We'll just leave that there. Property tax, this would normally be 2%, but I have learned that a lot of times these cheap properties, the government decides that there's a minimum value. So we're going to be cautious and assume that they might do that, in which case I've given it a minimum value of $50,000 times that 2% property tax, and that's $1,000. So that's 3 times what we would pay if we were only paying it on the purchase price, but at least it's in our budget, so we're covered if it happens. Insurance should be comparable. Utilities, I think, should be comparable, and this is what our total expenses would be if we had to hold the property for a year. Again, our closing costs, we're going to assume about 10%, and then our appreciation and everything else has stayed the same. So right now, we're in it for about $22,000. Let's try and figure out what our rehab might be. Again, this is going to be so arbitrary, but we're just going to overestimate everything and see what happens. So we're going to do a kitchen. Looks similar to the other property, so I'm going to still stick with $8,000. Plus a new bathroom, so we're going to do $6,000. I want at least another half bath or a separate bathroom, and since we're doing plumbing and things at the same time and we don't have something to demo, I feel like we can do that for a little bit less. There might be some random mechanical or electrical stuff that we don't know about, so let's throw in a contingency for that. We know we're going to be doing painting and flooring, and it's a pretty big apartment, so I might actually give us $7,000 for that. And then the other idea is that maybe we can reconfigure and make this a 3-bed. So there might be some tearing down of walls, and that's going to be a lot of patching of plaster and things like that. So I'm going to allot $4,000 for that because we've got a lot of extra things in there, and see where we're at. So we're at $32,000, and now our total investment is $50,000, which is looking good in my opinion. Now, just to be extra safe, we're going to add a 20% contingency on here so that we've got money for things that will pop up, because they will pop up. So now, if we pay this and we spend this on our rehab, if we can hit our target price, which is the least euros per square meter of 116,000, we're looking at a profit of 58.6 and a cash on cash return of 116, which are great numbers. Then we can play with this. Well, let's say our rehab costs go out of control, and instead of being this with a 20% contingency, they go up by 40%. That's 1.4. We still are making a profit. So let's undo that. I don't know where my 20% went. Let's put that back in there. Let's say we can only sell this for $80,000. You know, that it's somewhere just slightly over these 1-bedrooms, but way less than the 3-bedrooms. We've got a profit of $17,000, which doesn't quite hit our target, but it's still a good cash on cash return. So let's bump it up just ever so slightly. There we go. So we hit our target return of $20,000. We've got a good cash on cash return, and we're sitting in a pretty safe zone. So now we know that $85,000 is the least we can sell it for. Anything above that is going to be great. If we hit 116, fantastic. If we were to hit one of the bigger target prices, actually, what we can do is go over to our neighborhood information, and this gives us the median price for an 80 meter square property, which is just a little smaller than ours, but let's just figure it out. So 109 divided by 80 is 1371. So let's plug that into our comps, and we get a target price of just under 129,000. So if we plug that in, we'll just be exact, shall we? Then we're looking at a profit of 66,000, a return of 368% on our cash on cash. These are incredible numbers. So I would say this is looking pretty good. And if we go over to, but let's go back to being super conservative. What did we decide? 85,000 was our minimum sell, and that was a hefty profit. So we can make $24,000 with an outlay of $55,000, or we can make $18,000 with an outlay of $113,000. So I know which deal I want to do, because number one, if I have $100,000, then I can do 2 of these and make 50 grand instead of 1 of those and make less than 20. So I think that answers our question. Now, of course, we still need to know what's the demand, how fast could it sell. I feel like if a year is reasonable, but this is Spain we're talking about, and we've never done this before, so a year could be reasonable just for the rehab, and then another year could be reasonable just for the sales. So we could double our yearly expenses just to see what that looks like. Sorry, formulas. 12 times 2. And even if we sold it in 2 years, we're still in really good shape. Oh, this didn't feed through. formulas. There we go. So it knocks our profit down a little bit, but it's still a great return on our cash. And maybe prices go up another 2%. It's still looking really good. So, and this is our total investment. So if we have all this in cash, then there's really not a whole lot of risk versus when you're doing a flip and you're paying someone a mortgage or you're paying someone a really expensive rate on hard money or private money. That's where it starts to get really stressful. But this, we can just own it. And the worst case scenario, it's all finished. I can live in it. I can rent it out, and then it can generate some income, which would be on top of the profit. So all in all, I think this looks great.
All right, I hope that was as interesting to you as it was to me. We definitely found out which was the better deal, and I'm getting even more excited about actually starting on a project. So feel free to leave your feedback in the comments. Love to hear what you think of these videos. Are you getting more comfortable with spreadsheets? Is there any other information that I can give you that would be useful or just something that you're interested in? Please let me know. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.